feel like yelling, house is open. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. House is open. House is open. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. House is open. House is open.
Judy would be so pleased. Exactly. It seems like that. She knows her dressing. Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Good.
Should I stand here or should I stand? No, I should stand.
No, stand here. And then when you come, you'll know. Take this.
Thank
and
you,
then
Helen.
I'll go here. Yes. So let
Perfect.
me talk into.
I don't know what I'm telling a story, not about Judy.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
about Judy. You know this. I don't know if I did the right thing, but I did.
It'll be beautiful. Hello.
think it took me a decade or two to realize how special our mom was. She just poured so much care and attention and attentiveness into so many aspects of our lives, not just our kids, the kids, but everybody. And I took a long time to realize how fortunate we were to receive that. Her language of love was making people feel cared for and comfortable in the smallest, largest, and most creative ways in sort of every nook and cranny of our lives. When we were sick, when we were celebrating, when we were traveling, if she overachieved, it turned into worrying about us, but that was part of the deal. And we're just so lucky to have received that. And I think, Mom, you'd be proud of how much of that your kids and grandkids have absorbed. And I think you've seen it. I also hope I've absorbed your energy and your childlike curiosity, and you're always trying new things. You didn't let your world shrink at all. You kept trying new hobbies, new activities, yoga, calligraphy, adult school, new kinds of music, learning about science. And I hope I have some of those genes, Mom. I'm so lucky to have decades of you in our lives, and I miss you and love you.
I'll always remember the way Judy called me dear every time she saw me for pretty much the whole duration of my life. That's what I miss most, in addition to her loving spirit and the way she always made you feel like you were the most important person in that moment in time when she was with you. I love you, Judy, and I miss you, Judy. You were an amazing woman, and your spirit will live on forever.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I spent many times in the Weston home when I was younger and visited the United States. While Josh was my professional mentor, Judy was actually my second mom. I can't even begin to describe the extent of hospitality and care and warmth she gave me, and it always felt like being at home with the Yiddish mama. And she always prepared for me a room with some fresh fruit just in case I wake up hungry at the middle of the night, and always made sure that I leave with little presents for Ofra and each one of our children, or that I had enough change for the bus in case I needed to take one. With time, I learned that I'm actually not the only one. There were many, many children just like me besides her own.
Judy had an endless heart, and that's a way we will always remember her.
My mom is pretty legendary for all the little and big things she's done to help people over the years, and certainly I got more than my fair share of her goodwill. Some of my favorite memories are childhood ones where if I couldn't fall asleep, she would come and sit with me and do magic sleepy powder until I fell asleep. And it wasn't some CBD gummy she did. She would sit with me for however long was necessary, stroking my hair and telling me how my eyes were getting heavy and sleepy and drowsy. And she'd just sit with me, and sometimes I think she fell asleep before I did, but she always stayed. Or when I was homesick from school, she would always prepare a tray for me, and the tray would have cinnamon sugar toast for breakfast and a thermos and graham crackers and a banana for later. And then it would have games and puzzles to do in case we got bored, and it always had a bell on it that we could ring if we needed anything. I hope that I inherited some of her ability to see what people needed, to anticipate it, and to just give wholeheartedly. She was an inspiration, and I miss her very much.
I've been asked to share a special memory of you of my dear friend Judy, and I have chosen kindness and compassion. And the best example I saw of that was walking with Judy in New York City and thinking I was talking to her. I couldn't find her, only to turn around and see that she was kneeling down, not only giving a gift to a homeless man, but sharing a smile and kind words. I didn't hear the words, but the smile and expressions were enough. Judy's kindness and compassion were there for everyone. I miss Judy very, very much, but I am so grateful for our 40-year friendship. Thank you, Josh, and the Weston sons and daughters for asking me to be here today.
Judy was all about family. She was a wonderful grandma and Gigi ma. As a role model, she tirelessly gave of her time, energy, and resources. We really miss her a lot.
Love you, Gigi ma. We miss you. We always when you sing it, when you sing it. So I did a free melody, way and the golden sun. Me, I need, I call myself far a long way to run. So I need to put faith down. I know to find so deep. I think it's a bit and to bring us back to do.
Yay!
My grandma was a giver of coins, freshly laundered bills, slightly overripe bananas and other produce, socks, and any other thing she found in her house that she thought you might be able to use or could help you out. She always gave from the genuineness of her heart. She also gave advice at times wanted, at other times unwanted, but you knew her intentions were good. And I think that is something that I'll always remember about her, is her generosity. When John and I first started dating, there was a time that my grandma was coming home from New York the same time he was, and they took the bus together. I promptly got a phone call from him when they got home asking, "Is it normal that your grandma bought bus tickets and gave $20 bills out at the station?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's very normal." Also, I remember growing up and we went to Charlie Brown's, we were always treated like royalty. My grandma went out of her way to find any busboy, whether he was assigned to our table or not, and give extra tips. She always wanted to make sure the people around her were taken care of, and that extended well beyond her family and friends. It was to anyone she saw who could possibly need something more than her, and that was most people she knew. Another thing that I'll always remember about my grandma is how she loved to dance. She lived her life like a dance. She was elegant, graceful, present to the moment, always intentional, and I think the thing I'll remember most is her joy. She was able to maintain a childlike joyfulness that I think is very rare and made her present to every moment. It was truly special to be in her presence because she could always see the good and always had love for you. I love my grandma very much, and I will miss you.
When I think of Judy, I think of joy and generosity. She always had a way of coming into the room with this huge smile on her face and brought such positive energy. And whether it was looking to ask you if you needed something or just had a conversation to find out what was going on in your lives, it was such a warmth that you felt when you were in a room with her. And when it comes to generosity, one story sticks out in particular. We were on our way home from New York City through Penn Station, and she sought out a person who looked like they might be in need, went up to them, gave them $20, and came back to me. And I can tell for her, this was just another day, but it left such an impression on me, and I think is a testament to who Judy is.
Judy and I had a long-standing tradition of lunch on a Saturday or a Sunday, starting around the time that I graduated college 20 years ago, continuing even after I moved to the West Coast for 5 years, and after I came back with a newborn. She actually, I recall, pulled a pretty ancient high chair out of the basement in the last couple of years so that Sen could join us. Our ritual was sandwiches, and specifically the tuna fish from her favorite sandwich shop on Valley Road that I'm sure many of you know. She always brought me a brownie. That was until I was diagnosed with celiac disease, and she transitioned to a bread-free lunch once I was diagnosed. I always brought her a baked good, and she always reprimanded herself for eating it. And she always forced me to leave with a bag or two of groceries, something else some of you might be familiar with. Judy and Josh are known as philanthropists, but Judy was generous in every way. She was generous with her time, making space for these lunches. She would call to check in on me. She would take time to take my calls, even when she had visitors. And I always heard the phone ringing with family or friends checking in when I was there for lunch. She was selfless. She was so engaged with the world. She was full of energy and full of love. And it's something that I aspire to be every day.
I've known Mrs. Weston since I was little. One of my fondest memories is when we would get to go over to her house, go swimming in her pool, and have lunch on the back patio. No matter what she was serving for lunch that day, there was always plenty of fresh fruit for us kids to snack on while we played and waited for lunch to be ready. After lunch, we always had a choice of ice pops, popsicles, and probably 2 to 4 different flavors of ice cream. Then when it was time to leave, she would always send us home with more food than we wanted or necessarily would need. But that was her giving spirit, and I will always cherish that about her. When I think of Mrs. Weston, I think of the friendship she had with my mom. She and my mom would often play tennis at the local park and would often go to the ballet and theater together. These were things that my mom loved to do, and so did Mrs. Weston. Mrs. Weston's friendship to my mom was very special. I love Mrs. Weston, and I miss her dearly.
My name is Bob Hirsch, and I am the nephew of Judy and Josh Weston. Judy was my aunt, and such a loving, caring person, such an offbeat person. Conversations with her could be a roller coaster ride with deviations and parentheses and new stories and side stories, but she would always come back to the main point, and she always had a point to make with love and affection for the people she was talking about or to. I'm lucky to have called her aunt, and I know she will be missed by many.
One memory that I have of my grandma that I feel like perfectly embodies the way she lived her life was from July 4th, 2018. My dad, my grandpa, my grandma, and I went to the local Montclair July 4th parade, as we had done on other years. And when we had all collectively decided it was time to head home, my dad and grandpa and I were walking quickly to the car, and my grandma was taking forever. Not because she was a slow walker, but because she was still stopping along the parade route to congratulate everyone, to thank them, to dance and listen to the music they were playing. And I feel like that perfectly embodies the way my grandma lived her life. She had a way of enjoying the moment, and while others were always consumed with what was coming next in life, she was able to really enjoy that moment, and not only enjoy it, but make people feel like that moment was the most important and be very excited for them and celebrate their triumphs with them. So that's probably one of my favorite recent memories of my grandma and how she lived her life.
One summer trip to New Jersey, Melanie and I visited with Judy. During the visit, we enjoyed lunch and a swim in the pool. The best part about the swim was the game that Judy, Melanie, and I played. The game was simple. We had to tap a ball to each other while keeping it from dropping into the pool. Well into her 80s, Judy's quick reflexes, energy, and laughter made the game so much fun to play. As for lunch, needless to say, we did not leave the house hungry, nor did we leave empty-handed. The bags of snacks she packed nourished us for our car trip home. The wonderful memories from that day nourish me for life.
She was such times we had together. There's one quality of hers that I remember and miss most of all, and that was her ability to find immense joy in the joy of others. There's no better example of this than seeing my grandma at the end of an NDI performance, clapping louder and longer than everyone else in the room. Her smile mirroring that of the children on stage. It was really special to be with her in those auditoriums. My grandma's ability to be happy for the happiness of others is something that she showed to her friends, her family, and just about everyone that she met. And while it's something that we deeply miss, it's also something that we can and should emulate in her honor.
When we went on trips, Judy would bring cookies for the bus ride for the kids. At a given venue, she would go around and check to see if children had enough food to eat. She would even make her way to the parking lot to see if the bus driver needed anything. Her kindness never ended, and we will always remember her for that. Judy never complained. She showed up at many events knowing that she was ill. Again, we miss her for all her different ways, especially her kindness.
And yes, what a wonderful, wonderful friend. I'm sure a wonderful mom to all four of her wonderful children, and a loving wife to Josh, and just a wonderful human being. So we were blessed to have known her.
We missed you, Judy.
The arts were ever present in our home, and she was effusive about seeing creative people practicing their craft. She always wanted to share her appreciation of dance, theater, music, films, and fine art with the people around her. Dance was her favorite. Mom excelled in her own dance studies during her school years, and she was a fan and lifelong supporter of young dancers and professional dance companies alike. Mom enjoyed classical music, opera, and show tunes in particular. She attended many world-class performances, but she seemed equally, if not more, enthused to watch talented street musicians, applauding and tipping generously. Judy appreciated the fine arts as well, creating her own simple drawings and watercolors. At the same time, she was a consistent patron of art museums. However, true to her form, Judy was driven to support local artisans and craftspeople, always exhibiting empathy for the struggling artist over the great masters. So Mom, thank you for inspiring me to better appreciate the arts. I miss you and love you.
So I've been trying to find a way to describe Nana's warmth and generosity without using the words warmth and generosity. And I'll start with some stories from the past 10 years. So I played basketball in California, and I've been coaching in Chicago since then, and it's over 200 games. And for most of those, she would get on her computer to tune in to watch the game live. And if she couldn't see the video, she'd follow the stats, and I'd always get an email from her with some coaching advice. Occasionally she'd complain our opponents were too tall and it wasn't fair. And just generic love and support, and being proud of wins and upset about losses. But where I'm going with this was, I think she's done a lot of things that you could call acts of kindness over the years that weren't really acts of kindness. Acts of kindness can go a very long way, and they're very special, and she's had plenty of those in her lifetime. I think these were traditions of kindness. Whether it was connecting with me across the country through one of my passions, whether it's what she did for the mailman and sanitation teams on Christopher Street over the years. There's a sincerity and a consistency about it where it doesn't feel like she's doing it once to make you happy. You feel like she's doing it because it's supposed to get done. I think that's really special.
Mama. You don't know me. I'm Eric Weston, Josh and Judy's oldest son. And recently I've been thinking back about my mom and things that she did that were important to me, that were very important to her. And one of my earliest recollections was probably I was about 4 years old. I had an eye doctor in Manhattan, and periodically we would take a bus in to go see the doctor. And from the walk from Port Authority to the doctor's office, we'd unfortunately come across people who were less fortunate than we were, and less fortunate than a lot of people. And my mother, as many of you know, felt like she could help people out in any way she could, and she basically would give them money. But the way she would do it, and it was very important to her to do it this way, was that she would either drop it or give it to them and say to them, "You must have dropped this." It's very important to her from a pride perspective from them and a self-confidence perspective that they didn't think they were getting a handout. And she did that all the time. At that point in time, at 4 years old, it really didn't dawn on me why she did it, how she did it. Probably at that point, I probably had a tough time relating to the people who were really on the street. But to her, that was important. And since then, many of you know, it's very important to her to help out people, individuals, organizations, whether it be her little drop-off bagels, drop-off snacks, or helping people with their careers, or serving on multiple boards and organizations. That was my mom. That was something that was always very important to her, and she instilled it to all of her kids and her grandchildren. But that's probably one of my earliest recollections of how important it was to her to help people. And till she died, she felt that was so important and always did that. But thank you all for being there. And love from me and the whole family.
Most of what I learned from Judy took place in her kitchen. Not the rituals of cooking, but rather the way she lived in the modest and intimate space. Upon reflection of the objects, activities, and exchanges, here are a few of the lessons she taught me. Regular connection to others is vital. Honor loved ones by keeping their faces and stories present in your life. Balance is key to a healthy lifestyle. Stay informed and also make time for entertainment and amusement. The artistry, scholarship, accomplishment, and kindness of humanity are a value and should be shared. True friendship is comfortable, simple, genuine, and forgiving. Be gracious when offering and accepting gifts. And give people your full attention to make sure they know just how much they mean to you. Judy intuited the details of living a fulfilled life, and I am grateful for the wisdom she displayed, inspiring me to become my best self. Thank you, Judy. I love you and I miss you.
Okay, I got that over with. Whew. Good morning and welcome, and thank you for coming. Thank you for coming in person and virtually to the celebration of our mom's life. I'm Heather, by the way. We're so glad you're here, and after the restrictions and the collective heartache of the last 18 months, it feels like extra specially gratifying to be here with people we love. I think I've had more hugs today than I have in the last 18 months. I recently had the good fortune to take a trip to Hawaii. It was kind of heaven, and every day was dominated by radiant, soul-warming sunshine. You practically felt swaddled by the light and the warmth. But it wasn't only sunshine. The days were broken up by clouds and bursts of rain. That's what I imagine this day will be. Basking in the warmth and the radiance of family and friends as we share stories of my mom and the way she touched and moved and changed us, a real celebration of who she was, sprinkled with intermittent tears as we feel the loss and grief. And while tears will be shed, our family is really serious about wanting today to be a celebration with more laughter than tears. We don't want grief to be the loudest voice in the room. So some of you likely know that on special occasions, a big birthday, an anniversary, my mom would often turn up with a handwritten poem or toast. She would hold it like this. She was carefully crafted with love, always alliteration and humor. She saved a drawer full of these tributes, to close friends, and among them we found a surprise, something that she had written in March of 2015 called When I Die. And I'm going to attempt to read most of it now. This can be called a post-mortem in the most literal sense of the words. Thank you for coming. It's never convenient or pleasant to attend a funeral, but to quote Yogi Berra, if you don't go to someone's funeral, they won't come to yours. So you all figured it out. I can't reciprocate. I've had good fortune in my family, friends, and health, and the last few decades have all held satisfactions and enjoyable activities. Our children and grandchildren gave much more joy than worry, and worry was one of the few good things to diminish with age. Shared memories unite us so we never totally die. This is the hard part. So be well and stay close to each other, especially family, and enjoy the many good things of this world and approach life with a sense of humor. Love, Judy, Mom, Grandma, and Nana. So that's what my mom wanted us all to know, complete with a Yogi Berra quote. She used Yogi Berra a lot. Although for many of you, my mom's generosity and thoughtfulness might be what you think of first. For me, it is what I will generously call her pervasive enthusiasm. She was a zealot and an evangelist. If she loved something, she would not relent until you loved it too. I see laughter of recognition there. Or at least if you gave it a chance. Klezmer music, Ken Burns, Alvin Ailey, ping pong in Bryant Park. And while she only sometimes made me a convert, she did something more important. She turned me into someone who has tried and likes to try lots of new things. And I suspect that's true of some of you. I never thought I would miss the voicemail messages that alerted me to the amazing PBS show that was about to begin. Okay, more recognition. But I do, just like I miss the daily phone calls, the reminders about whose birthday or anniversary was coming up. And as a side note, if I've missed your birthday or anniversary this year, now you know why. And I really, really, really miss her hearty, genuine, unhesitating laugh. I love and miss her. I'll leave you with one iconic mom story. I was in my tweens, and some of the family had taken our first trip to Israel, and we had a really long layover on the way back. And they were renovating the airport we were in, somewhere, maybe De Gaulle, I don't know. And there was a huge renovation project, and beyond us, the airport was almost empty. And I don't remember being cranky and bored, but I probably was. And my mom had the antidote. So she took out the new game of Kadima, which is essentially like paddleball, that we'd purchased in Israel. And Hillary, my mom, and I took over a long hallway and hit balls back and forth, laughing and having fun as we tried to achieve new high scores. And some of you know how much high scores really matter to her. It was a very mom thing to do. She always preferred to be moving instead of sitting. She loved games of all sorts. She was completely, embarrassingly indifferent to what passersby might have thought. And she was empathetic to our boredom and distracted us with something fun. And I really love that memory. As I noted earlier, my mom had many enthusiasms, and one of her absolute favorites was National Dance Institute. I'd like to introduce two leaders of NDI. They knew and loved my mom. Here are Ellen Weinstein and Helen Stambler-Neuberger.
Oh, Heather. I whispered in Heather's ear, and I'm sure Ellen did too, that was such a beautiful tribute. Good morning, Josh, dear family and friends of Judy. My name is Helen Stambler-Newberger, Chair Emerita of NDI, where I work with my dear, brilliant friend, Artistic Director Ellen Weinstein, and where Judy served miraculously on the board, earning the well-deserved lifelong honorary title of Director Emerita. I think Judy was extraordinary. I have watched different tributes to Judy, and then this morning's beautiful one put together by family and her closest friends, and realized that what I thought was extraordinary was quite ordinary. And that makes what she did even more extraordinary. Judy was a powerful example of empathy, generosity, and justice, and of knowing what it takes to work for a more humane world. I believe that's why she loved NDI so much. I think of her kindness, her compassion, the lunches and interstate bus rides, the energy bars, the probing of big ideas to make things better. Judy understood and always acknowledged the care and hard work from her dance and music teaching artists, work that was so necessary to give the NDI dancers, whom you will see very shortly, the experiences and the life skills, the knowledge of different cultures, and the joy and humanity that they receive at NDI. And Judy never failed to appreciate and thank me for all she knew a leader does. Judy was gracious and determined, powerful in her humanity. She loved Josh and her family. And dear amazing Heather, who is now on our NDI board, says Heather is a combination of the best of both of her parents. What great gifts she possesses, right? Judy made my life better. I am inspired by her kindness and gentle strength.
Good morning. I'm Ellen Weinstein. Judy loved music and dance and children, and she lived those loves through her service on NDI's board. She never missed a performance, and the joy on her face as she watched the children dance was matched only by the joy on the faces of the children performing. She cared deeply about the work of NDI and the people doing the work, the teachers, the artists, the administrative staff. I miss Judy's wise counsel, her endless encouragement, and her one-of-a-kind smile. She saw the world as a place she can impact all the time, one person at a time, and she did it in a way that reflected her modesty and selflessness. When I think of Judy, I'm reminded of this story. One day a man was walking on the beach when he saw a boy throwing something into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he said, "What are you doing?" The boy replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surf is up, the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die." The man said, "Don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds of starfish? You can't make a difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it back into the surf. He turned to the man and said politely, "I made a difference for that one." Judy, on behalf of NDI, for all the lives you've touched and all the children for whom you've made a difference, we thank you, we love you. You will live in our hearts always. And now, to exemplify and celebrate the spirit that is Judy Weston, here are children of National Dance Institute performing Dancing in the Streets.
makes me feel the way that you do. It's alright. Whenever I'm asked who makes my dreams real, I say that you do. You're out of sight. So fee, fi, fo, fum. Look out, baby, 'cause here I come. And I'm bringing you a love that's true. So get ready, so get ready. I'm gonna try to make you love me too. So get ready, so get ready, 'cause here I come. Get ready, 'cause here I come. Get ready, 'cause here I come. Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Summer's here and the time is right. We're dancing in the street. They're dancing in Chicago, down in New Orleans, in New York City. All we need is music, sweet music. There'll be music everywhere. There'll be swinging and swaying and records playing, dancing in the street. It doesn't matter what you wear, just as long as you are there. So come on, every guy, grab a girl, everywhere around the world. It doesn't matter what you wear, just as long as you are there. So come on, every guy, grab a girl, everywhere around the world, everywhere around the world. We're dancing in the street, we're dancing in the street, dancing in the street. This is an invitation across the nation, a chance for folks to meet. And they'll be laughing and singing and music swinging, dancing in the street, dancing in the street, dancing in the street, dancing in the street, dancing in the street. We're dancing in the street.
I'm going to start with a funny line. My kids suggested I write a speech because sometimes my memory forgets stuff. I said, no, I don't have to write a speech. It's in my head. After seeing all of the talking already, I'm glad I didn't write a speech for another reason. I couldn't have said it as well as these articulate people did. But there's one thing no one said. There's one thing no one said that I think needs to be said. I think I was the best wife picker in all of New Jersey. Maybe someday I'll write a book on how to pick a wife. In any event, to all of the people here, and there are many others watching this event on Zoom, I want to thank you for participating. I want to thank you even more for all of the phone calls and emails and letters and goodie bags and dinners that came my way during the last year. It made a very difficult year feel much more comfortable, and many of those people are here in this room today, so I thank you. I next have a thank you for my kids, Eric, Ron, Hillary, and Heather. They really put this whole thing together. And a special call out to Hillary because, not Hillary, Heather, she had rounded up 200 different names of friends of Judy, and then she rounded up email addresses, mailing addresses, phone numbers, and this wouldn't have happened if my kids hadn't done all the work they did, so I thank them for that. I also want to thank my grandchildren. They've been terrific. I have eight grandchildren. And as an exercise a few days ago, I decided to think about this team of 12, 4 children, 8 grandchildren. Try to remember any screw-ups in their collective lives. I couldn't think of a single serious negative event, which leads me to conclude that my A-team is 8 plus 4 is 12 people, my A-team is batting 1,000. They had home runs, triples, doubles. They never had a foul tip and for sure never struck out. And I thank all of them. We also have a farm team. Farm team has only 2 members. You saw them up here. And if it weren't for COVID, they would have been here. But I can see what's coming because Judy rubbed off on everybody, including even those 2 little kids. Now, we lived in our house in Montclair for about 50 years, and if you live in the same house that long, there are all kinds of mementos that accumulate. One of them is the entrance door to the kitchen, because on that white panel, with every one of our grandchildren, once a year, she would measure their height, put the date down, and put their name down. So when you go in the kitchen, which I do fairly often, you see the Judy panel there with each kid's lines going from 3 foot high to 6 feet high. And aside from it being a nice curio, it reminds me of Judy every single time I go in the kitchen. And it is tough. I think of her easily 20 times a day, and obviously miss her and wish she was here. We were married 66 years. That's pretty long. I don't think one in 1,000 marriages get to be 66 years old. And during those 66 years, I often was not home because of my other various activities. So 90% of everything that's nice or good in our family, she was the foundation for making all of that happen. And while she was making all of that happen, she made time for the following. Got an MS degree at Montclair State. She was president of the Montclair Adult School. She was very active in League for Women Voters. She was active in Hadassah and many other areas. I just can't fathom how she could do so much. Now, you heard a fair number of stories about Judy. I'll try not to be repetitious, but there were one that wasn't mentioned at all. That's rather peculiar. I'll get to it in a minute. And there was one I'm going to amplify, even though it was mentioned. The one that wasn't mentioned at all was international in nature. Judy and I, and not in nature, forget the word. In any event, Judy and I were on a trip in Norway, and we were having a pizza in some restaurant in Oslo, just the 2 of us. Now, a big pizza is more than the 2 of us could finish. And so we decided we'll finish half the pizza, and she said we're going to give the other half to a homeless person. So she asks the waiter in this Oslo restaurant, please wrap up this pizza, and then she asks him, where can we find a homeless person? The waiter said there are none in Oslo. We spent 10 minutes walking up and down blocks to give the pizza to somebody, and sad to say, we ended up throwing it away. But that was good for Norway. They didn't have homeless people. The next thing I want to amplify, you heard a bit already. Judy and I would eat out periodically, and when we're done eating, I would give my credit card to the waiter, and the waiter would come back with the thing to sign, and she would always say, make sure it's at least 20%. I said, okay. I would write it down. She would then take the slip to make sure it was 20%, but that wasn't the end. You heard a piece of the following. She would take out a $5 bill and look for the busboy because she figured any part of my tip didn't reach the busboy, and she wanted the busboy to appreciate it. But sometimes she didn't see the busboy. She would go into the kitchen and tell them, I want to find that busboy. She was persistent in helping people. And if you put together all the homeless stories that were alluded to, I am absolutely positive that she helped way more than 1,000 disadvantaged people. In addition to being helpful to all the friends of Judy, some of whom spoke here on that video. Absolutely amazing. Now, we've been married 66 years, about 25,000 days. If you are with somebody for 25,000 days, you get so used to the positives, you don't even think about them anymore. It just becomes part of the woodwork until it's gone. And wow, this last year has really been a toughie. I thank all of you, the guests here. I thank all of my family, including the A-team, for helping me get through it. And if I added any more comments to what I've already said, I don't think they'd be anywhere near as eloquent as what you already heard, both on the videos and from the speakers. So I'll spare you hearing me anymore, but look forward to seeing you again when we go to the atrium. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and thanks for being so helpful. Which way we get out?
We are three of Judy's longtime friends, and we want to share some of our memories with you. On my right is Rita Singer, and on my left is Joan Cram. So first we'll hear from Rita.
Judy and I swam at the Y regularly. One day the lights went out and the fire alarm sounded. I was still in the pool and Judy was in the locker room. Since there were no windows in either the pool or the locker room, it was pitch black. And only the exit signs were guides to guide us. So someone called out, "Everyone leave the building and gather in the parking lot." When Judy was asked to leave, she replied, "My friend Rita is still in the pool. I'm not leaving until I find her." I had made my way through that darkened locker room and heard her voice. And I called to her, "Judy, I'm here. Go on out. I'll meet you in the parking lot." She remained where she was until she actually saw my face. And then we both went out of the building in our bathing suits. It turned out to be a false alarm, but she had put herself in what could have been great danger. And that's a true and steadfast friend.
Now, Joan Cram.
Judy and I met at a party when we were 48 years old. Early in our conversation, we learned we both had a passion for dance and had taken classes in 1949 at the New Dance Group, 58th Street between 5th and Madison. We couldn't remember the name of our teachers, but were quite certain we had taken classes together those many years before. That was the foundation of our friendship, but a large structure was built on that foundation. Yes, we went to lots of dance recitals, and every year we danced the sirtaki at the Greek festival at St. Nicholas, Constantine, and Helen, probably to the embarrassment of our husbands. But there was more than that. We enjoyed museums and concerts and travels and yoga. And we talked. We talked about politics, wishing we could do more to fix the world, but mostly we talked about our families. That was a subject about which we never tired. I miss those talks. I miss Judy.
When Judy and Josh moved to Montclair in 1958, they moved to my street. And we quickly became good friends because we shared interests and stories about our babies and our toddlers and our first home. But when our children grew up and pursued other avenues, and we did also, a group of friends decided we should get together once a year each time we had a birthday. And so 5 of us used to meet in a restaurant to celebrate a birthday. The celebrant would usually receive a special birthday card and a small gift. But that wasn't enough for Judy. Judy had to bring a gift for each of us. When we finished the meal, and I'm sorry, Josh, I'm going to repeat a lot of what you said, Judy reminded us to leave a good tip. And when we left the restaurant, Judy would always be the last one out because she was looking for the waitress to give her a few extra dollars. But one time, we couldn't find Judy until we saw her leaving the kitchen, where she finally found the waitress. Judy not only wanted to give those who had less, but she liked to give to her friends also. Her caring and generosity and love has left a lasting imprint in all of our lives.
My name's Brian. This is my brother Adam. We're on the A team. I think being on the Josh and Judy Weston A team might be the most impressive thing on my resume. Hopefully we're going to do our best to represent her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. We've always called her Nana, by the way, and why stop now? So I've enjoyed hearing all the different people think they're telling funny stories they shared with her, and then the whole room laughs because everybody understands the same thing. I'll try to share a few of those from our lives. When we would visit, she was always happy to see us, waiting at the back door, waving to us as we walked up the driveway. When we'd leave and the car was driving away, she was standing at the back door waving again. Mom, I think this is where you got your habit of waving to people who you're in earshot of. Not only would she always offer food on her way out, but if, as my cousins shared last year, if you rejected her grocery bags of gifts at the back door, she would be standing at the front door by the time you got to the end of the driveway, offering the same gifts. She was always really happy to talk on the phone as well. Whenever she had a story to tell, you had to wait for her to remember every date and name and relationship in there before she could continue. And when the conversation would end, she'd always say the words, send my love to your family, and she'd give the most rapid goodbyes for some reason. It seemed like she was always interrupting her own goodbyes with more goodbyes. Bye, dear, bye. Yes, bye. Love you, bye. She'd say bye 10 times before I said it once. She made a routine out of correcting our posture. She would run her fingers up our spine if she caught us slouching. And she had us trained like Pavlov's dogs, where if we saw her do it to one of us, we'd all of a sudden all sit up straight. Sometimes I'd slouch on purpose just because it felt good. She clearly really loved the arts. I grew up playing basketball and studying engineering. I did not love the arts. That did not stop her from connecting with me. She would, as I said in my little video tribute at the beginning, she watched as many of my games as she could, and I have a couple of those emails I referenced just for you to hear her words. You've all heard her talk a lot, probably not about college basketball. Dear Brian, I am always glad to see your games, and I've never heard of Vanguard University, but they came on very strong. Also, a few of their players were able to hang on the rim when shooting. They must have been huge. My usual advice is Caltech should shoot more and possibly get fouled with a chance for free throws, and less of a chance of having the ball stolen while passing. Easier said than done, I know. Love you and love to see you on the court. Dear Brian, I'm so grateful to be able to see the games live and that you won on Friday night. Caltech continues to play teams of giants. The way they hang on the rim indicates that. Your three-pointers are great and necessary in that you can't score from under the basket. Blunt, but she's right. Also, every time Caltech has possession of the ball, it should be as though it's the last 2 minutes of the game, with minimal passing time, which also hazards turnovers. Shooting and getting fouled is the way to gain points. The other team did that often and too well. So she had all the right sentiments, but not always the right terminology. But it meant a lot to me that it was not something she was innately passionate about, but found a way to connect with me about it. And that meant a lot to me. So here's my brother, Adam.
Thanks. My last conversation with Nana really surprised me. A lot of us today are talking about how her generosity and kindness inspired us. And in her last couple of weeks, I built up the courage to say that to her. So I went over to her bedside and I told her basically that, I said, Nana, the way you give to others has really inspired me. My company with my girlfriend Corinne is called Aggressively Compassionate. It might as well be named after you. And I want you to know I want to devote my life to giving how you do in my career. And this was a big moment for me. In my head, I wanted Nana to know her legacy was secure, not just through me, but through all of the people she's inspired. But what Nana said to me was just, don't work too hard. Which at first was kind of deflating. It felt like I took a big swing and I kind of missed. But then I realized it was perfect, because even though Nana was happy to always be moving, always be helping others, and didn't seem to rest much at all, if ever. I don't think I ever saw her horizontal, or even sitting down at a meal. But even though she did all that, she never wanted us to overextend ourselves. She always wanted to check in with us, to keep up with us, to make sure we were comfortable and we were happy. And Nana loved playing Keep It Up. I learned today that she played Keep It Up in an airport when there was a long wait. She played Keep It Up with many of us with a little rubber pool volleyball well into her 80s, or Keep It Up with her grandson James in the hallway with a little koosh ball, I believe it was. So she was always playing this game of Keep It Up, but I believe she played Keep It Up with people too. She played Keep It Up with our birthdays, dozens of birthdays, your kids' birthdays, her nurses' kids' birthdays. She played Keep It Up with our postures. She played Keep It Up with traditions as well. Every Passover or Easter, she would send these chocolate marshmallows to all of us grandkids. And every Hanukkah, she would donate to a charity on our behalf. For decades, for as long as I can remember, she played Keep It Up with these traditions. And I don't know about you guys, but after Nana passed away, I had to figure out where people get stamps, because I always got mine from her. I've never gotten stamps anywhere else, and I realize I'm probably asking the wrong room of people because you guys don't know where to get stamps besides her either. But my point is that Nana liked to play Keep It Up, not just as a childish game for her whole life, but also keep it up with the people she cared about by reaching out and lifting people's spirits over and over and over again. That's what Nana did. That's what a lot of us here have learned to do. And together, I think we can still keep it up. But don't work too hard. Now, we're going to watch a short video that, with the help of family, I've put together of Nana, or Judy, some of the people she cared about, and it's edited together, inspired by a letter she wrote about 15 of the things she valued most in life. So I tried to compile this video based on what she valued. Thank you so much. Oh, bye, dear.
Bye.
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 Love you. Bye.
Bye. Love.
Bye,
Bye.
dear.
Bye.
Love to you all.
What you want to play with Daddy? This is an all-sport evening. All-sport.
Good evening, and I thank you all for coming.
Happy birthday, dear grandma. That's awesome. Debbie made it.
This is a surprise. I don't mean phones, I'm here. Phones has cameras on.
I'll take a picture of you taking a picture of him.
This isn't the ball?
Grab the ball.
He doesn't want to. No, you gotta get a different ball.
A little negotiation is going on.
Throw ball. What's wrong with this ball? So, Hillary, you got a ball with holes in it.
Right, Brian, you thinking?
I'm ready.
You thinking what your courses are, maybe? I'm kidding. Okay. I knew you could do it.
Hey, Tommy Twins, where'd you go?
Hey! We're doing nothing
There
else,
he is,
Tommy.
this guy popping out all kinds of places.
Now it's short range.
Just saying, man. Go, Heather! I believe the ball is now. I'm bad luck.
Yeah, that's a good one. Ready? 3.
She looks so happy. And they all do.
Nice.
Part of another family. Maddie is now 18 and 19. But no, Michael, and I don't know if this is Joseph, but it's Joseph.
Joseph.
Oh, Barbara, remember.
Hello.
So, Rachel, I think you have another business.
I'm sorry. Mostly Sienna, and certainly her vision, and she made this.
What is it?
The tassels to go over the cake.
You went to a...
You're the production manager. Come on, take pictures. Here we go. Battle of Champions.
I'm getting a cramp.
You got a cramp?
Because I'm moving too much.
Oh, Brian's out. Hula hoop championship. Brian, what happened, buddy?
It fell.
What are you doing?
He speaks the same language Elena speaks.
Sha, sha, sha. Boo, boo, boo. Bacon crisp.
Full contingent.
Put those on the wall. And then you're gonna try to get them back. Yes. Traveling show.
Hey, Smiley. Went someplace else? Very best.
I've been on the NDI board for more than 15 years. The children that I've observed are transformed by NDI, and they often go from being shy and withheld to expanding and feeling much more confident after they've been dancing with NDI. I personally feel like dancing when I've seen a show.
Look, a little gnat. Maybe you want that as a pet.
A gnat?
Through their incredible support, creativity, and volunteer leadership, Judy and Josh have touched the lives of millions throughout New Jersey and around the world. Judy's teaching and board commitment at the American Museum of Natural History has helped enrich countless visitors and children. Judy has said that their mission as philanthropists is to be as helpful as possible to as many people as possible. Speaking on behalf of the millions they've helped, I can say, mission accomplished.
I was a dancer and a dance teacher, and I loved it. I wasn't famous, but I enjoyed dancing.
Grandma's going. Go, Grandma.
Blow it up before the cake catches fire.
Oh, is it? Oh, cakes I like. Either way. Okay.
And great success in the future to you all.
Good morning. For those of you who don't recognize me or might think, wow, he looks a little like Judy's older brother, Jack. I'm Russell Hirsch, a son of Judy's older brother, Jack. I felt deeply honored when I received a phone call from my cousin Heather, asking me if I'd be willing to say a few words at an upcoming celebration for her mom. A celebration for of her mom's life. While I can probably be considered somewhat public speaking hesitant, so many wonderful memories of my Aunt Judy began flooding my mind that I found myself eager to share them all with you here and now. Don't worry, I was told that I have to keep things brief. I'd like to ask you all to please close your eyes just for a minute and picture Judy Weston's face as I read a short quote. Speak tenderly. Let there be kindness in your face, in your eyes, in your smile, in your warmth, and in your greeting. Always have a cheerful smile. Don't only give your care, but give your heart as well. For me, it's hard to think that Mother Teresa did not have her eyes closed, envisioning my aunt while penning those lines. That was Judy to a T. I'm confident that everyone here is familiar with that pervasive flush of warmth that would instantly overcome us as we assimilated her smiling face as our own. I can recall that smiling face warming me throughout my life. A fitting image that keeps popping up in my head is a fairly recent one. In September of 2019, Judy and Josh visited me and my family at our beach house on the North Fork of Long Island. During a day of exploration, we found ourselves almost alone in a farm with a vast field of nothing but lavender. My aunt and uncle made themselves comfortable in a pair of lavender-colored Adirondack chairs that were cleverly situated in the center of that lavender sea. I stood at a slight distance, taking in the scene, and admittedly, I was getting a little teary-eyed thinking about the inevitability with which we were all to be confronted. My eyes then caught up with my Aunt Judy's, and that warm flush, this time scented in lavender, brought me peace. Thank you, Aunt Judy, for giving me your heart. Thank you.
I'm so honored to be here. I'm Kathleen DiCera. I was the founder and CEO for quite a while
of the Community Food Bank and have had Judy and Josh as good friends for so many years. But Judy was not only a special friend, she was a very special person, an extraordinary person, and you heard so much of that tonight. We texted or talked almost every day, the good times and the hard times that we both dealt with at some points. My daughter, Erin, from Atlanta, had twins prematurely, 1 pound 4 ounces, 1 pound 6 ounces. They were months in the hospital. They did live. And when they came home, they had multiple visits to the doctors, and the bills start running up. And Judy sent a generous donation, and it really helped. When they were 2 years old and still having multiple visits to doctors, my daughter's husband came down with stage 4 cancer. He had surgery, he had chemo, he had radiation. But after 3 years, they said he was in remission. By that point, both my daughter and her husband were not working. And then my daughter came down with acute leukemia and was sent to MD Anderson in Houston, Texas, and was there almost a year before they could say she was in remission, and that, more importantly, the bone marrow transplants would save her life. And again, Judy was so generous, and it was the generous gifts of funds meant so much, but the caring meant so much to me. I was having such a hard time while all of this was going on. And it was my friend Judy who was there for me to share that with. And then I was the board chair of the National Diaper Bank Network. And Judy sent an unsolicited donation to them. And she told me that her children and her grandchildren never went without the diapers they needed. So she wanted to help as many babies as she could. And this is just one more story of what all of you know. What an incredible, loving person. She will forever be in my thoughts and in my heart. Thank you, Judy. I miss you. Thank you all.
My name is Wendy McNeil, and I'm honored to be here. For the many years that I knew Judy Weston, for the high holidays, I would send Judy a note that said Lashana Tova. This year I sent it to Josh, and Josh got back to me immediately, and he said, congratulations, you know 2 Hebrew words. Well, Josh, I know more than that. To my friend Judy, Shalom Havera. Shalom Havera.
My name is Wendy McNeil, and I'm honored and blessed to be able to say that I was one of Judy Weston's friends. I haven't a clue of how our friendship began and frankly why it continued. We come from 2 very different worlds. Judy was raised in a middle-class Jewish family in Brooklyn, and I came from a working-class Black family in Newark. Judy was a dancer, and Heather, Judy's youngest daughter, described her mother as being constantly in motion, and anyone who was in Judy's presence felt her energy. I studied the more staid and slow-moving art history. But whatever it was that connected us, our friendship lasted until the very end of Judy's life. After I had major cancer surgery, Judy came to my home with a bag of what she labeled as goodies. And the goodies consisted of peanut butter crackers and America's favorite cookie, possibly the least healthy, Fig Newtons, bottles of Coca-Cola, it wasn't even Diet Coke, potato chips, popcorn, and last but not least, a box of laxatives. You are on painkillers, Judy said. You are bound to get constipated. Judy always thought of everything. She knew that after having major cancer surgery, that what I wanted, what I really wanted, was to feast on junk food. Judy and I talked about everything from the late actor Paul Newman, who she referred to as the handsomest of men, sorry Josh, to Donald Trump, who she aptly referred to as, quote, an injured soul. And she offered me her recommendations, not advice, but recommendations on practically every aspect of my life. When this country erupted in violence after the death of George Floyd, Judy called me, and she immediately began to talk. She said, Wendy, I'm not a Black person. I don't know what it means to be Black in this country. I want you to know that what is happening now to your people is horrible. It is a deep scar on this country. And Judy ended the call by saying, I want you to know I am on your side. I will never forget that call. I will never forget her words. For a friendship to last, it must have some mutual give and take. And I tried with the goodie bags, and she always outdid me. And God knows my attempts to pay for our restaurant lunches always ended in failure. But what I was able to give to Judy was a drop in a vast ocean to what she gave me, especially her last gift, which was showing me how to die with dignity, courage, and grace. During our last 2 weeks of telephone conversations, Judy, who mistook me for a believer, said that she felt the process would be easier if she was a believer. I told Judy that I too was an atheist, and that what mattered most of all was that she was a good person. Judy Weston was a good person. On their wall in their vestibule, Judy and Josh have a scroll hanging, and it contains a quote from His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. We are visitors on this planet. We are here for 90 or 100 years at the very most. And during that period, we must try to do something good, something useful with our lives. I want to thank Eric and Ron, Hillary and Heather, and most of all, dear Josh, for sharing your mother and your beloved wife with the world, and especially for sharing Judy with me. She brought happiness to thousands of people, and Judy Weston's light will shine on for eons to come. Thank you, Judy. Thank you for being my friend.
Hi, everyone. This is quite a celebration, even more than we asked for, and I have a lot of tough acts to follow. I'm Hillary, the other daughter, and the last to speak up here tonight. And much has already been said about our mom, but it's actually still easy to elaborate. So with my siblings, I was in the front row, or you could say the splash zone, receiving Mom's abundant love and generosity and advice. Wendy, it was advice sometimes, thank you. And there was a lot of it. And I admit, I was not always receptive because we're all imperfect human beings. We can overachieve with our gift giving and underachieve with our appreciation. So I'm sorry, Mom. But I do know I was incredibly lucky to have a whopping 57 years of Judy in my life. And Mom had the most, as you all have heard and know, creative and quirky and unsolicited ways to care about someone. So I'm just going to share a few that I think are not widely known, although maybe at this point you've heard it all. When we were homesick as very young kids, she'd cheer us up with something she created called an activity box. It was just an old shoebox full of repurposed knickknacks. I remember pipe cleaners and Play-Doh and stickers and pads, and it really did cheer me up when I had strep throat or something that felt really yucky. And flash forward 30 years, and she had her big junk drawer in the kitchen. I guess the adults wouldn't know about it, but it was down here. Any kids coming through could find something to entertain them for a car ride home. Gadgets, yo-yos and balls, and of course, gala souvenirs were in there too. And Brian and Adam were eager customers. And maybe some of you actually have noticed this one. So if you ever sat next to Judy at a live theater performance, especially dance, but all of them, she had to be the very first person to applaud at a performance. She had to be. And to ensure that the performers never, ever, even for a nanosecond, thought that maybe they weren't being fully appreciated. She'd often clap before the performance ended because that's what happened. And we could count, it was embarrassing, and we could count on Mom to look out for everyone's safety in all situations. And our family knows the protocol, right, grandkids, wherever you are? We had her pool rules and decades of call me when you get there. And here, borrow my hat and sunglasses. And on beach vacations, she'd even be the lifeguard to other people's children, total strangers, if she saw a need. And yes, that was embarrassing. Heather noted our mom's abundant enthusiasm. Actually, several people did. I want to add the amazing thing, the most amazing thing about that to me, and it was in her values so many years ago, is that it did not wane with age. Through her 80s, she'd still express her youthful awe about anyone who did anything impressive or worthy or entertaining. And it could be from a musical prodigy to an athlete to each grandchild, and from a dedicated teacher to a nonprofit founder or to the comedic genius of someone like Carol Burnett. Her zest was incredible, and I hope I can not let my energy and enthusiasm wane the way I want to follow her like that. Now back to the present. So Mom would love, love, love that you're all here. And in fact, if she was here, she'd be cheerfully introducing and reintroducing all of us in the lobby. That's the celebration she wanted. And I'd like to just assume that her sunshine, as Heather said, is actually here. And literally, I think this is her orbit. Like, this is her orbit of people. So this is her. And even those who are watching with us virtually, thank you for joining. We know you're here in spirit. Before I wrap up, I'm the last speaker. A quick word on safety. So you can take off your masks while you're eating and drinking in the lobby. There are doors open. There's outdoor space to eat as well. And the caterers will serve the buffet, all COVID safe. No vouchers for parking, despite all the reminders Heather and I sent out. Parking is free in the lot. So let me end with a small request. If you want to honor Judy's legacy, just ask someone you don't know at all, or you don't remember, someone you don't know well, so how do you know Judy? And I'm pretty sure the resulting conversation will make you smile. So now I'm going to say goodbye and say this is quite a celebration, so thank you all for making it possible. I want to say goodbye from our whole family and to our virtual friends who won't be coming in the lobby with us. Thanks for joining. And everyone here, I'm going to ask you to move kind of quickly to the lobby where my brothers Eric and Ron are going to make a quick toast before we all get to mingle and chat and eat and share. So thank you very much.